When you're building your garden in Grow a Garden 2, it's not just about planting as many seeds as possible. The real secret to making huge profits is knowing which seeds are actually worth your time. Some crops can earn you a fortune compared to the more common options, while others come with unique bonuses that can completely change how you play. If you've ever wondered why some players seem to get rich so much faster, their seed choices are probably the reason. In today's video, we're ranking all 27 seeds in Grow a Garden 2 and breaking down what makes each one good, bad, or absolutely game-changing. We'll look at their average sell value, whether they're single or multi-harvest crops, how difficult they are to obtain, and any special perks they offer along the way. So before you spend your hard-earned resources on the wrong seeds, stick around and let's find out which crops deserve a spot in your garden and which ones are better left unplanted. I'm quickly moving on to the video and I'm ranking seeds in Grow a Garden 2. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The seeds in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, tomato, blueberry, strawberry, and carrot. Tomato sits at the top of D tier, and honestly, it is probably the only seed in this tier that feels somewhat useful. With an average value of 9 shekels per harvest and the ability to be harvested multiple times, it gives new players a decent way to build up some early income. Sure, it is not going to make you rich, but during those first few minutes when every shekel matters, tomato can pull its weight surprisingly well. Right behind it is carrot, the very first crop every player starts with. It costs just 1 shekel and sells for around 5 shekels, making it the definition of a beginner crop. There is nothing fancy about it, and you will replace it as soon as possible. But at the start of your Grow a Garden 2 journey, carrot is basically your only realistic option for earning money. Blueberry is another seed that sounds better than it actually is. On paper, the multi-harvest mechanic gives it an advantage over carrot, since you can collect from it multiple times without replanting. However, the average yield is still only around 5 shekels, which means the profits remain pretty low. It can help fill empty garden space early on, but you definitely do not want to invest heavily in it for long. Then we have strawberry, which unfortunately takes the crown as the weakest seed in the entire game. Even though it is also a multi-harvest crop, the average return is only 3 shekels per harvest. Considering that the seed itself costs 10 shekels, the value simply is not there. Once you unlock better options, strawberry becomes one of those crops you will probably never think about again, except as a reminder of how far your garden has come. The seeds in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, mango, coconut, grape, banana, green bean, pineapple, cactus, corn, apple, and tulip. Mango kicks off the C tier, and this is one of those crops that looks much better on paper than it does in practice. Seeing a legendary multi-harvest crop naturally gets players excited, but then the reality hits when you notice the seed costs around 300,000 shekels. For that kind of investment, you would expect incredible profits, yet mango falls well short of the stronger crops available later in the game. That does not mean mango is completely useless though. If you happen to unlock it while building toward better seeds, it can serve as a temporary moneymaker. The problem is that most players will eventually realize there are far more efficient ways to spend such a large amount of shekels, making mango more of a stepping stone than a destination. Tulip sits in a very different position. It is one of the earliest crops players can access, costing only 40 shekels while returning around 60 shekels from a single harvest. Early on, that is actually pretty respectable value. It also adds some visual charm to your garden, which is a nice bonus when your farm is still small and developing. Unfortunately, tulip's usefulness fades quickly. Once stronger crops become available, there is very little reason to keep dedicating valuable plot space to it. It does its job during the opening stages of the game, but its career is usually short-lived. Cactus earns its place in C tier thanks to a small defensive advantage. Income-wise, it only averages around 40 shekels per harvest, which is nothing impressive. However, not every crop in Grow a Garden 2 is purely about profits, and cactus at least offers a little extra utility that can occasionally come in handy. Even with that defensive perk, cactus is not something you should rush to prioritize. The earnings are simply too low compared to stronger alternatives. If you need a budget defensive crop during the early game, it can help, but its value drops significantly as your garden expands. Next up are coconut and grape, two crops that suffer from a very similar problem. Both carry epic rarity, which creates the expectation of strong returns. Coconut averages around 60 shekels per harvest, while grape sits at roughly 45. Those numbers are not terrible, but they are nowhere near good enough to justify getting excited about their rarity. This is one of the first lessons many players learn in Grow a Garden 2. Rarity does not always equal profit. Both coconut and grape can generate some income, but once you start comparing them to the crops sitting in higher tiers, their weaknesses become pretty obvious. They are decent placeholders, but not crops you want to build your entire strategy around. Banana, corn, and pineapple all fall into the category of good enough for now. Banana averages around 35 shekels per harvest, corn sits at roughly 34, and pineapple comes in at around 30. None of them are particularly exciting, but they can help newer players slowly climb the economic ladder. If your goal is simply earning enough shekels to unlock better seeds, these crops can contribute to that process. Finally, we have apple and green bean, which sit near the bottom of C tier. Apple only averages around 12 shekels per harvest and quickly becomes outdated once better options appear. Green bean is even more surprising because it carries epic rarity while producing only around 10 shekels per harvest. The one thing saving green bean is that it can sometimes be obtained for free through Grow a Garden 2 codes. Even then, neither crop is something you will be relying on for long if your goal is building a truly profitable garden. The seeds in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, cherry, dragon fruit, bamboo, and acorn. Cherry is a great example of a crop that quietly gets the job done. It may not generate the insane profits that some of the higher tier seeds can produce, but the combination of multiple harvests and a respectable average value of 350 shekels makes it a reliable choice for mid-game players. Since it is also one of the more accessible legendary seeds available in the seed shop, many players will spend a good amount of time using cherry while working towards stronger options. Bamboo is easily one of the most interesting seeds in B tier. Unlike most crops that require patience before becoming profitable, bamboo practically pays for itself immediately. The seed costs only 700 shekels, while a single harvest returns around 800 shekels. That means you can recover your investment with the very first yield and start generating profit right away. The downside is that bamboo only produces one harvest, so it cannot compete with the long-term earning potential of multi-harvest crops. Still, for players looking for quick returns, bamboo is incredibly efficient. Acorn offers a different kind of value. Instead of relying on a high individual harvest, it makes its money through volume. Each plant can produce a large number of fruits, and those harvests gradually add up over time. With an average value of 200 shekels per fruit, acorn can become a dependable source of income for players who are willing to be patient. The main issue is the seed price. Spending around 700,000 shekels for a crop with relatively modest harvest values prevents it from reaching the next tier, but it remains a strong and reliable option nonetheless. Dragon fruit rounds out B tier as a solid stepping stone crop. Being a legendary multi-harvest seed automatically gives it some appeal, and an average value of 150 shekels per harvest is respectable enough to keep your garden moving forward. However, once you start unlocking stronger seeds, dragon fruit quickly begins to feel average rather than exceptional. It is not a crop you will build an endgame garden around, but it serves an important role by helping players bridge the gap between the early game and the truly powerful moneymakers waiting in the higher tiers. The seeds in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, poison ivy, poison apple, pomegranate, sunflower, and mushroom. Sunflower comfortably earns its place near the top of A tier and is arguably the dream crop for players who do not want to rely on luck. With an average value of 1,750 shekels per harvest and the ability to be harvested multiple times, it generates incredible income while remaining obtainable directly through the seed shop. Before mythic seeds become a realistic option, sunflower is often the crop that transforms a struggling garden into a highly profitable one. Right behind it is poison ivy, a seed that manages to combine strong earnings with extra utility. Averaging around 1,700 shekels per harvest, the difference between poison ivy and sunflower is actually quite small. What makes poison ivy stand out is its defensive hazard effect, giving it value beyond simple profit generation. If you are lucky enough to pull one from a ghost pepper seed pack, it can become one of the most useful crops in your entire garden. Mushroom is one of the most fascinating seeds in Grow a Garden 2, because it completely changes how players think about value. While it only produces a single harvest, that harvest averages around 13,000 shekels. Considering the seed itself costs just 15,000 shekels, the return on investment is absolutely incredible. In terms of pure efficiency, Mushroom may be the strongest economic seed in the game. The real magic happens when mutations start appearing, turning already impressive profits into something much more substantial. Poison Apple proves that you do not need unlimited wealth to start using mythic seeds. At around 400,000 shekels, it is one of the most affordable mythic options available, making it accessible far earlier than many players expect. Each harvest averages roughly 900 shekels, and because it is a multi-harvest crop, those profits continue accumulating over time. It may not generate the same excitement as some of the more expensive mythics, but its affordability makes it one of the smartest progression choices in the game. Pomegranate shares a very similar harvest value, also averaging around 900 shekels per yield, but the comparison becomes much less favorable when you look at the seed price. Spending 12 million shekels for returns that closely resemble Poison Apple creates one of the weakest income to cost ratios among mythic seeds. That does not mean Pomegranate is bad by any means. It still generates strong income and belongs in A tier for a reason. However, when players compare the investment required versus the profits earned, it falls just short of joining the elite crop sitting at the very top of the rankings. The seeds in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Ghost Pepper, Dragon's Breath, Venus Flytrap, and Moonbloom. Moonbloom sits at the very top of the tier list, and once you look at the numbers, it is easy to understand why. With an incredible average value of 9,000 shekels per harvest and multiple fruits produced from each plant, Moonbloom generates more income than any other seed in Grow a Garden 2. On top of that, harvesting its fruit grants an anti-gravity effect, giving it a unique bonus that no ordinary crop can offer. If your goal is maximizing profits, Moonbloom is the gold standard that every other seed is measured against. Dragon's Breath follows closely behind and brings something to the table that no other crop can match. Not only does it generate around 3,400 shekels per harvest through multiple harvests, but it also actively protects your garden by firing lasers at players who attempt to steal from you. That combination of strong income and powerful defense makes Dragon's Breath one of the most valuable seeds in the entire game. For players who have invested heavily into a high-end garden, having a built-in security system can be just as important as earning more shekels. Venus Flytrap takes a different approach to garden protection. Instead of shooting lasers, it literally eats players who try to steal your crops. That alone makes it one of the most entertaining seeds in the game, but it is not just a gimmick. With an average harvest value of 3,000 shekels and a multi-harvest structure, Venus Flytrap is also an excellent moneymaker. It does earn slightly less than Dragon's Breath and significantly less than Moonbloom, which is why it lands lower within S tier, but it remains one of the strongest overall investments available. Finally, there is Ghost Pepper, a seed that many players may never even get the chance to own. Averaging around 2,500 shekels per harvest, it easily ranks among the highest earning crops in Grow a Garden 2. The challenge is actually obtaining one. Ghost Pepper can only be found through the Ghost Pepper seed pack, and with the drop chance of just 1%, it is by far the rarest and hardest S tier seed to acquire. If luck happens to be on your side, however, Ghost Pepper rewards that patience with elite level profits that can compete with almost anything else in the game. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.